You lazy girl. You are just pretend to be tired.
The sun hung low over the dusty streets of Akure, casting long amber shadows that crawled across the veranda where Morayo sat. She was scrubbing a heavy iron pot, her knuckles raw and her back aching. Every few minutes, she would pause to wipe the sweat from her brow, her eyes drifting towards the gate, watching for Kunle's return. They had been married for 3 years. 3 years that felt like 3 decades of slow, agonizing fire. When she first married Kunle, she believed her love would be a shield. She was a woman who defined her worth through his smile. If he was happy, she was whole. But Kunle's smile had become a rare currency, one he only spent when she wasn't the target of his mother's venom. Morayo, how many decades will it take you to wash that pot? The voice belonged to Iya Kunle, her mother-in-law. The older woman stepped onto the veranda, tying her wrapper tighter around her waist. She smelled of snuff and bitterness. 3 years, Morayo. 3 years in this house, and the only thing you have increased is the amount of food you consume. My son's house is quiet. No cry of a child, no laughter. Just your heavy footsteps. Morayo bowed her head. Mama, the doctor said we should be patient. They said nothing is wrong with...
Doctors. Iya Kunle spat on the ground. What do those small boys in white coats know? I know what is wrong. You wasted your youth in the city before my son found you. You threw away your children in the gutters of Lagos with abortions, and now your womb is a desert. Either that, or you have a husband in the spirit world who is blocking your fruitfulness. Why else would a healthy man like Kunle remain childless? When Kunle walked through the gate an hour later, Morayo rushed to take his bag. She had prepared his Havite egusi soup, the melon seeds hand-ground to a perfect smoothness. Welcome home, my husband, she whispered, searching his face for a flicker of affection. Kunle didn't look at her. He sat at the small dining table while his mother sat across from him. As Morayo placed the steaming bowl of pounded yam and the aromatic soup before him, Iya Kunle's hand shot out. With a swift, violent motion, she pushed the tray. The bowl hit the floor, the ceramic shattering, the rich orange soup splattering across Morayo's legs. Ah, Mama! Morayo cried out, jumping back from the heat. Don't mama me, the old woman roared. My son will not eat food prepared by a woman whose hands are cursed. I have cooked for him. Kunle, come and eat, my son. I have prepared the pounded yam exactly how you like it, not like this watery mess your wife served you. I don't know what she uses her hands for, if she cannot even cook a decent meal for the man who kept her in his house, despite her dry womb. Morayo looked at Kunle, her eyes brimming with tears, silently begging him to say something, anything. Kunle simply stood up, stepped over the mess on the floor, and followed his mother.
Clean this up, he said coldly, over his shoulder. And try to see the prophet I told you about. Mama is right. This silence in the house is becoming an insult to my name. Morayo spent that night on the floor of the kitchen, weeping. She went to every prayer mountain, fasted until her ribs poked through her skin, and even visited shrines she was terrified of, all to please a man who wouldn't even look her in the eye. Then the miracle happened. The morning the pregnancy test showed 2 lines, Morayo thought she had finally been granted a pardon from a death sentence. She ran to Kunle, falling at his feet. Kunle, I'm pregnant. God has finally remembered us. For the first time in years, Kunle laughed. He lifted her up and twirled her around. Even Iya Kunle, when she heard the news, broke into a dance, singing praises to her ancestors. They threw a small party. They bought her new wrappers. For a few months, Morayo lived in a dream. She was finally woman enough. But as her belly grew, so did a strange, nagging pain. By her 3rd trimester, the joy began to pale under the weight of exhaustion. On a bright Friday morning, during a routine checkup at MK General Hospital, the dream began to crack. Dr. Paul, a middle-aged man with kind eyes and a furrowed brow, moved the ultrasound transducer over Morayo's stomach. He went quiet, his lips thinning into a straight line. Morayo, he said, setting the gel aside. Listen to me very carefully. You have what we call placenta previa. The placenta is lying unusually low, covering the opening of your cervix. It is like a door being blocked.
Morayo sat up, rubbing her belly. What does that mean, doctor? Is the baby okay? The baby is fine for now. Dr. Paul replied, his voice grave, but you are in a very dangerous position. If you go into labor and try to deliver naturally, the placenta will tear first. You will bleed out and the baby will lose oxygen. To save your life and the life of your son, you must have a cesarean section. We will schedule it to your due date. Do not, under any circumstances, attempt to push this baby. Morayo walked home in a daze. She was terrified, but she was also relieved that there was a plan. Surely Kunle would understand. Surely his mother would be happy that the grandchild she had wailed for was finally coming safely. That evening, as the family gathered in the living room, Morayo took a deep breath. Kunle, Mama, I saw Dr. Paul today. He said the baby is in a difficult position. He said I have to go for an operation, ACS, to bring the baby out safely. The silence that followed was heavy and suffocating. Then Iyakunle let out a dry, mocking laugh.
Operation? The old woman sneered, leaning forward. So, it has come to this. Morayo, you want to tell the whole of Akure that you are a failure. A real woman proves her worth in the labor room. She sweats, she groans, and she pushes her child into the world. That is how we know who is a mother. But Mama, Morayo pleaded, her voice trembling. The doctor said I will bleed. He said it is dangerous for me and the baby. Nonsense, Kunle barked, finally speaking. He stood up, towering over her. Are you the first woman to be pregnant? My mother had 5 children, all born in the room behind this house. No doctor, no operation. Now you want to spend my hard-earned money on a surgery because you are too lazy to do what God created women to do?
Kunle, please, it's not about laziness, it's about life. Morayo cried. Kunle leaned in, his eyes dark. Listen to me, Morayo. If you go to that hospital for any operation, do not bother coming back. I will not pay for a woman who cannot perform the basic duty of her gender. I will leave you there and I will marry a woman who is strong enough to give me children the right way. Choose wisely. Morayo was trapped. She fled to the house of her best friend Kemi the next day. Kemi, I am dead, Morayo wailed, collapsing onto Kemi's sofa. When Morayo explained the situation, Kemi's face turned red with fury. Morayo, are they crazy? Are they trying to kill you? Kemi shouted. Placenta previa is not a joke. My cousin died from that same thing because she listened to people like your mother-in-law. But Kemi, the gossip, the mockery, Morayo whispered. They will say I am not woman enough, and Kunle, he will leave me. Kemi grabbed Morayo by the shoulders, shaking her slightly. Let them talk. Will their gossip bring you back from the grave? If you die trying to impress Kunle and his mother, do you think he will remain a widower for even 1 month? He will find a new wife. She will sit in your parlor, wear your clothes, and raise your child, if the child even survives. Use your head, Morayo. Your life belongs to you, not to their pride. But the money, Kemi. Kunle won't give me a kobo for surgery. I have nothing saved. Kemi stood up, went to her room, and returned with a bundle of cash. This is 150,000 naira. It is all I have saved from my business this month. Take it. I will find the rest. I will borrow, I will sell my gold. But you are going to have that surgery. Do not let these people kill you. Morayo's eyes welled up with tears. Thank you, Kemi. I don't know what I would do without you. Morayo took the money, her hand shaking. However, the pressure at home became a physical weight. Every day, Iyakunle sang songs about lazy women and Hebrew women. Don't worry, Iyakunle said the one morning, her voice deceptively sweet. I have found a solution. Dr. Paul is just looking for money. I am taking you to see Iya Aduni. She has delivered thousands of babies. She knows the secrets of the womb that these book-learned boys don't. Terrified of losing her marriage, Morayo allowed herself to be led to the outskirts of town, to a hut that smelled of burning herbs and ancient dust. Iya Aduni, a woman with milky eyes and a permanent scowl, listened to Iyakunle's explanation. It is a small thing, the herbalist said, stirring a blackened pot over a small fire. The doctors of today only want to cut people open to take their money. This water will move the placenta. It will soften the bones and make the baby slide out like okra. She handed Morayo a plastic bottle filled with a dark bitter liquid. Drink this every morning and every night. By the time you are ready, you will deliver like a Hebrew woman. Morayo drank it. Every morning, the bitter liquid burnt her throat. Every night, it made her stomach churn. The date Dr. Paul had set for the surgery came and went. Morayo stayed home, drinking the herbs, praying for a miracle that aligned with her husband's ego. A week after her due date, the pain began. It wasn't the rhythmic waves of normal labor. It was a sharp, tearing agony that felt like a hot iron being twisted in her abdomen. Morayo collapsed onto a mat in the living room. Kemi arrived at Morayo's house to check on her after 3 days of unanswered calls. She pushed past the door and stopped dead. In the middle of the living room, Morayo lay on a thin mat. Her face was the color of ash, her lips blue. Her wrapper was soaked in dark, clotted blood. Standing over her was a woman Kemi didn't recognize, a quack midwife and a Yakonle. "Push, you useless girl," Yakonle was shouting. "The baby is right there. Stop pretending to be tired. You are just lazy." "She is not pushing well," the midwife grumbled, pressing her heavy knees into Morayo's upper abdomen, trying to force the baby down. "If she doesn't push, the baby will die."
Morayo groaned, a sound so weak it was barely human. "What is wrong with you people?" Kemi screamed, rushing forward and shoving the midwife away. She rushed to Morayo, but the younger woman's eyes were rolling back in her head. "Morayo! Morayo, look at me!" Kunle walked in from the bedroom, looking annoyed. "Kemi, leave this place. This is a family matter. My mother is trying to help her deliver naturally." "Help her?" Kemi's voice cracked. "You are killing her! Kunle, look at your wife. She is unconscious. Take her to the hospital now." "She is just stubborn," Kunle said, crossing his arms. "I told you I am not involved in any hospital business. If you want to take her, but don't expect a kobo from me. C-section is a taboo in our family." Kemi didn't waste another second. She ran outside, screaming for help. 2 neighbors, moved by the sight of the blood, helped her carry Morayo into her car. Kemi drove like a woman possessed, weaving through the thick Akure traffic, her hand glued to the horn. When she pulled into MK General Hospital, she was screaming for help. Dr. Paul was stunned to see Morayo still heavily pregnant. "What happened? I thought you already went to another hospital to deliver your baby," he said. Kemi explained everything. He didn't wait. "Theater, now! Check her vitals. She is losing her pulse. Get the oxygen. Get the blood bank." Inside the theater, the atmosphere was thick with tension. Dr. Paul prayed a silent, desperate prayer as he made the first incision. When he reached the uterus, he gasped. The smell was overpowering. Whatever she drank has caused the placenta to break into pieces, and it's already decaying inside her womb. He walked with frantic speed. He pulled out a baby boy, pale, but miraculously, after a few terrifying seconds, the infant let out a thin, piercing cry. The nurses rushed the baby to the incubator. But for Morayo, the damage was done. The medicine from the herbalist had acted like an acid, destroying the uterine lining and causing internal infections that had already reached her bloodstream. Dr. Paul spent hours cleaning, stitching, and pumping fluids, but he could see the light fading from her eyes. When Morayo woke up an hour later in the recovery room, she was tethered to a dozen tubes. Kemi was by her side, her face swollen from crying. "Kemi?" Morayo's voice was a ghost. "I'm here, Morayo. I'm here." "The baby?" The nurse brought the bundle over. Morayo held him for a fleeting second, her tears falling on the infant's forehead. "Ayomide," she whispered. "My joy has arrived, but I cannot stay to see it." She looked at Dr. Paul and Kemi with eyes that were already glazing over. "I am so sorry. I was so afraid of being alone. I was so afraid of what people would say. I am so sorry I didn't listen. In my next life, I will choose myself. I will not die to please a man who sees me as a slave. Forgive me, please." Suddenly, the door burst open. Kunle and his mother marched in. Kunle marched straight to the bed and snatched the baby from Morayo's weak arms. "Aha! My grandson. He looks just like Kunle." "Mama," Kemi gasped, "your daughter-in-law is dying. Have you not so?" "Is she the first to die?" Kunle snapped. "She was too weak for this world. At least she did one thing right before she left. Kunle, look at his nose. He is a true son of the soil." Kunle stood by her, nodding. "He looks just like me." Kemi stood up, her body shaking with fury. "Are you people demons? Your wife is dying right there.
She is bleeding to death because she tried to please you, and you haven't even asked if she is breathing? Iyakunle didn't even turn around. Did we force her? She chose to drink the herbs. She chose to be weak. If she wants to die, let her die. She has given us what we need. We don't need a lazy, broken woman in our house anyway. Kunle, let's go. The boy needs real milk, not the blood of a dying woman. Kunle looked at Morayo. One final cold look. I told you I wouldn't pay for this. Kemi, since you brought her here, you can settle the bill. We are going home. They turned and walked out, the sound of the baby's fading cry echoing in the hallway. The silence that followed was heavy. Morayo heard their words and sobbed, realizing that she had no one to stand with her but Kemi. She asked Kemi to contact her parents. A strange cold strength seemed to settle over her. She beckoned to Kemi. Kemi, please, give me a handful of sand from the flower pot there. Please. Confused and sobbing, Kemi did as she was asked. She placed the dry earth into Morayo's trembling palm. Morayo struggled to sit up, her eyes wide and burning with a terrifying light. She raised the sand into the air.
May you, Conle, and your mother never know peace in your hearts, she rasped, her voice gaining a sudden haunting depth. May love and joy slip away from your home, and may the happiness you deny others evade you forever. She coughed, blood flecking her lips, but she did not stop. May the same cruelty you showed me follow you every day of your lives. May your hearts grow heavy with sorrow, and may your wealth and comfort never bring you true joy. May the pain you forced me to endure return to you, and may your home never be at rest. With a final violent motion, she threw the sand toward the door and collapsed back onto the pillow. The machines began a frantic, high-pitched beeping. Dr. Paul rushed forward, but he already knew. Morayo's heart had shattered long before it stopped beating. With one last shudder, she gave up the ghost. Kemi fell to her knees, her wails filling the hospital corridor. Morayo's parents arrived 2 hours later from their village. When they saw their daughter's body, the woman who had left home full of life and hope, now a pale husk, their grief turned into a white-hot rage. They killed her, Kemi sobbed, explaining the 3 years of torture, the herbalist, and the final abandonment in the hospital. Morayo's father, a tall, dignified man whose hair had turned white in an instant, did not go to a mortuary. He and his brothers carried Morayo's body wrapped in a white sheet and drove straight to Kunle's compound. They arrived just as Kunle and his mother were showing the baby to a group of neighbors.
The father leapt from the car, his voice a thunderclap that silenced the neighborhood. Kunle, come out. Come and see the prize you won. He laid Morayo's body at the foot of their gate. You took my daughter's youth. You took her peace. And when she gave you her very life, you threw her away like refuse. Morayo's mother threw herself on the ground, wailing, My daughter, my only daughter, the earth will not swallow you until justice is served. The neighbors gathered, whispering in horror as they saw the shape under the white sheet. Kunle stepped out, looking annoyed. What is this? Why are you bringing a corpse to my house? This is your wife, Morayo's father screamed, his hand trembling as he pointed at the body. This is the woman you killed with your pride and your mother's wickedness. You wanted a child, but you sacrificed the mother. How can you be this heartless? Iyakunle came forward, clutching the baby. Get this body away from my door. It is an abomination. We have the heir. The vessel is no longer needed. The crowd gasped. The sheer coldness of the woman turned the air frigid. Morayo's father stepped forward, his eyes wild with grief. You think you have an heir. You think you have a legacy. You have nothing but blood on your hands. I call upon the earth of our ancestors to witness this. From this day forward, may this house be a place of wailing. May the child you stole never bring you the pride you crave. You have murdered my daughter, and the land will not forget. People who heard the story also cursed them in their hearts. Meanwhile, Morayo's parents carried her home, their grief heavy but tinged with relief that their daughter would finally rest among family. Neighbors came to pay their respects, offering support and prayers for Morayo's soul. And that was how Morayo lost her life out of ignorance. Life is precious. Never allow the opinions of others, even family, to endanger your health or your future. Never risk your life to prove your worth to people who have already decided you aren't enough. A Hebrew woman delivery is a blessing, but a safe medical delivery is a miracle of modern science. Both are valid. Protect yourself, your dreams, and your loved ones. Some stories are told to entertain. Others are told so they are never repeated. This is one of those stories. If you've been following to this point, thank you for listening. Share this story so it can reach someone who needs to hear it. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more real-life stories that teach and heal.